What's going on, guys? And welcome back to another episode of Stereotherapy. I'm your host, Lisa. You know, I got my girl Justine co hosting this thing with me. And if you're new here, this is the show that showcases the importance of music and mental health. We invite guests on to share their own story of how music has made a positive impact in their lives, as well as their mental health journey. Before we get into our wonderful guest, you know we have some business to take care of, so let's go ahead and do that. If you're liking this thing and you want to help support this show, this little engine that could, all you have to do is leave us a positive rating or review on any app you are currently listening to this right now, as well as follow us and subscribe to our show. Helps you not miss a show. You always know when things go live, and you're kept in the loop. So go ahead and do that. We appreciate all the support so far. I still can't believe there are almost 200 of you that are listening to this thing and you've subscribed to this thing. That is so wild. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. Today in the show, I was joined by the wonderful band hailing from Minnesota, Halfway Down. I was joined by Blake, Sean, Ivan, and Cameron. I had the whole crew here, which was so cool to finally have that. I can't thank these guys enough. We talk everything from the early days to their musical journey. We talk about how music has aided in their mental health, and they say so many wonderful things in terms of male mental health. So I'm really excited that they came on the show. And they're just such a cool band. Like, I think when we think of pop punk or certain genres right now, a lot of it can sound the same. And I think when I heard them immediately, I was like, oh, I hear the influences of this maybe pop punk band or this hardcore band. And then hearing them talk about their influences, it was like, okay, yeah, I can definitely hear it. So, such a great conversation. And I truly hope you check them out. All links are below. The only thing is, yes, we're going to talk about Suede Studios. That already happened. So, just keep in mind this was recorded before some stuff, but I kept it in because the conversation was just so fun. So I will be quiet. But before I say that, obviously, Justine wasn't feeling well, so she couldn't hop on this one. So I took the reins. You will hear Justine again. She will be back. But yes, you will not hear her on this one. So I just want to make that clear before you listen to it. And maybe you're looking for Justine and like, where's Justine? What's going on? But here is our wonderful conversation with Halfway Down.
How's it going?
Good. So cool to have you guys on because immediately when I heard your music already like, okay, they're gonna come on. It's like this is perfect for me. I know Justine, she can't be here today. She's having like her chronic pain flare up right now. So she's like, I
Mm.
can't. We didn't want to reschedule. So I was like, all right, you sure? But both of us were like, this is perfect for the podcast and we love it. So I was so excited.
That's all. Yeah, our I think the blend of all of our inspirations kind of hit perfectly. I grew up listening and being addicted to the early 2000s era pop punk,
Yeah.
Blink 182, Simple Plan, MXPX, like moving on through. And then I think literally the rest of the guys are all more of like 2010s ish hardcore and easy core era, but they can speak on that.
Yeah, a lot of I used to actually when Ivan and I were younger, we liked the really heavy stuff, like Amir, like super hardcore music.
Oh,
And then I eventually kind of moved on to pop punk, and then I still wanted that heavy punch, so then easy core kind of became my thing. And I don't know, as you get older, you get into a lot more different things. So one of my favorite bands, Enter Shikari, used to be hardcore, and now they're more like a what would you say, Cam? Like a synthy, like blend. I don't even know. It's like a really weird.
yeah.
Electrocore. Oh, and really quick, just for listeners, we're gonna go around all four of us and say our name and say hello, just so we know who's talking.
That's
My
perfect
name
because
is
I was definitely gonna say that because that way everyone can know who's talking, so go ahead.
yeah. So at least we know our voices.
Yeah.
I'm Blake. Hello. I sing and play guitar.
I'm Sean. I do backup singing and guitar.
My name is Ivan. I play bass and do some occasional vocals.
My name's Cameron. I do the drums, and we are halfway down.
Yes, and it's perfect because I think that's the most band members we've had on. Usually it's 1 or maybe 2. So that's what's so cool. I was like, "All right, good. We're gonna get, like, other perspectives, and it's gonna be really cool to have that," because when you just have 1, they're speaking usually for themselves. So I'm excited that you guys all took time for us because I know it's kinda early, right? It's noon, like, where you guys are at. That's an early time, so I appreciate it.
Oh, totally, yeah.
It's funny when you guys bring up like hardcore music or even Enter Shikari. Like that was for me too. I grew up, all my friends were in hardcore bands, and that's where I gravitated, whether it was Every Time I Die or Norma Jean, any of that. And then I gravitated towards the Newfound Glory because they have that hardcore
Oh,
element. So it's just cool to see that so many other people, I know a guest we had on, Ryan, was the same way. He was like, I'm hardcore all the way. But when I brought up Newfound Glory, expecting him to kind of maybe not be into that, he was like, "Oh my gosh, they're like my favorite band. What are you talking about?" I was like, "Oh, well, I guess that's not, I guess it's a common thing." So that's really, really cool.
well, it's so hard. It's I think as you start like making music too, and taking inputs from three other people in a band, you have to deal with everyone's. I'm not gonna say deal. That sounds negative. You
Mhm.
have the opportunity to be infused with their sounds and their ideas and whatnot. And so, I like softer indie core, ska punk stuff. Like I like a lot of that weird stuff, and sometimes that comes in through my music, and then meshing it with an easy core breakdown or Ivan's screams or Cam's freaking fills. It kind of makes us versatile.
Oh, 100%. Like that's what I even listening to you guys, where I think pop punk can be one of those genres that is really a lot of it can sound the same. And
Yeah.
again, I'll throw Newfound Glory under the bus. I love them, but sometimes I'm like, all right, it kind of is all one sound. With your music, you can hear those influences and you can hear that it's not just, oh, this is a pop punk band. And that's why I was like, oh, this is so exciting to have a band like this. That's doing so many cool things that it's not just, and again, that's why I gravitate towards 4 Years Strong for that reason. They're not your just typical pop punk, let's just, talk about girlfriends and boys, or relationships.
Yeah, yeah.
They have those tones and elements that I'm like, this is why I like it. So again, that's probably why I gravitate towards your band as well.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's we're trying to make music that is accessible to everyone but
Yeah.
still unique at the same time, and that's challenging, but so far so good. We Our next couple songs are we take a different turn on genre, but we hold true to pop punk and hardcore, but it's going to get even more interesting. So it's we're pushing our limits.
We really are. Like we try really, really hard to get heavy, punchy, but still have that really catchy chorus too. And that's really challenging sometimes. We have one song that we're working on right now that is extremely challenging, but when we finally get it, it's gonna come out really good. It's gonna be a really awesome song.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that. And kind of like talking about music, obviously, I know, again, we ask this question to everyone, and someone might say, again, like you're asking to everyone, but it's so cool to hear everybody's different takes because everybody that we've had on has had a different answer. So, again, you guys can all go around however you want to do it. But what were, for some of you guys, whether it was a band, artist, album, time, moment, some of those first memories of falling in love with music?
I in I've had a musical family, or at least one or two members of my family every generation has a music bug. So I grew up with a lot of music in the house. My mom she just is addicted to buying the now. This is now
Hmm.
55, or what, a
Yeah.
thousand greatest hits. Uh, and so she always had that playing. She loved the Cars. She loved kind of like that poppy with like a little infusion of punk 80s music, and then also loved disco and some fusions of jazz. So I grew up hearing that. My dad loved Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, a lot of like the grungier stuff in the 90s. So I had that infusion. When I started playing guitar, probably started the hardest because of Guitar Hero 1. Like I was playing that before I knew how to play guitar, and that kind of
Hmm.
inspired me to actually learn how to play guitar. And so that those games have such a wide range of eras of music and styles of music. So just playing that day in and day out, because I do love video games, kind of exposed me to 60s through early 2000s, of metal, punk, emo, just everything is kind of in those games.
Hmm.
Um, but one of my big moments of actually falling in love with music is my older brother. and I would drive to school every morning, and our CD player would get a CD stuck in it for weeks and we couldn't get it out. And I put in the Beatles one CD. And so we would just blast the Beatles on our way to high school every day, like for weeks and weeks and weeks. Just obviously, there's a lot of weird takes on the Beatles, but I
Mhm.
think they're an amazing band. And I think that kind of am in love with harmonies. Like that's probably my favorite thing to add to songs is finding harmonies. And I think that probably helped is just listening to the Beatles nonstop for weeks when I was developing. And then also when I discovered like Blink 182 and Say
Mhm.
Anything, I just got addicted to them for years and years. That's all I listened to day in and day out, and like that's what really sent me into pop punk.
Oh, I love that because it's funny you bring up Guitar Hero because that's for me too. I think a lot of us forget like a lot of whether it's not just Tony Hawk, right? Everyone talks about Pro Skater and
Yeah.
they should, but Guitar Hero was huge. And even for me, I remember seeing whether it was bands like Thrice on it. And for me,
Yeah, yeah.
I can't play guitar, but I could play a good Guitar Hero. So like
Exactly.
it's so cool. And I wish I still had my setup and everything to play that because I miss Guitar Hero. And that just like instantly brought back where there were so
Yeah.
many cool bands that I heard on Guitar Hero.
Well, and I went back and bought Rock Band 4. I didn't even know what songs were on it, but I knew that I had to start playing one of those like interactive music games again. So I bought Rock Band 4, and buying the instruments now is an investment. It takes
Mhm.
to save up for all these instruments. But now with like downloadable content, you can download full disc choreographies of your favorite band songs onto Rock Band. So, now I have a ton of Blink albums saying like I have a lot of my favorite songs now on Rock Band on top of what they already offer. So yeah, I mean it's still there, but sadly I don't think they're developing any new games around that. But
Oh, they got to get on with that.
yeah, it's probably corporate bureaucracy and all that stuff.
Mhm. Oh, for
But
sure.
Sean's turn.
Yes. Yeah.
My story's really simple. So my parents, they were into like 80s thrash, and they introduced me to Metallica. I think it was the song Fuel.
Mhm.
Guitar in that song was just so nasty and driving. I was just like, I want to do that. So that's what made me want to play guitar in the first place. I did some lessons for like a month with a guy named Carrie. Shout out to Carrie. And I kind of just went, all right, I know how to play the thing. I know what I want to do. And I just self taught myself, and everything else is history, basically.
I love that. I feel the same way with my parents. My mom was big into Metallica. So Fuel, just even hearing that brings it back. Like that intro and that opening of it. And just I think a lot of us, as especially if you're in your 30s, it's like, yeah, like your parents had Metallica, all those bands around you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hey, this is Ivan. Hey, where do I start? So my first exposure to like rock music in general was when I was about 10 at a birthday party. I had a friend had like a pool party that was going on or whatever, and I had a friend that brought over a Reliant K album. It was the Two Lefts Don't Make a Right but Three Do,
Hmm.
and like just like instantly hooked into like rock music and stuff, which is funny because my parents, like my family really isn't musical, and they're from Central America, so like there's more of a like tropical dance influence there, which I never really appreciated when I was a kid, but I really like it now, right?
Hmm.
And then I slowly got into like heavier stuff, like through Linkin Park, like Meteora was like still to me is like a perfect album basically. And
Hmm.
once high school hit, got into like heavier stuff. Me and Sean started going to a bunch of shows and whatnot, and yeah, the rest is just kind of history.
Yeah, that is something to mention. Ivan and I have been friends since like high school. So
Yeah,
that's kind of an interesting dynamic too, as well.
yeah. So well over what, like 10, 12 years
Probably longer.
longer. Almost
Yeah.
50
Oh,
years.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool. So I'll pass it over to Cameron.
All right. So it's hard for me to come up with an original story per se. I don't think it's been mentioned yet, but Sean, the guitarist, is my older brother, off by about 4 years. So we grew up in the same house, had a lot of the same influences. Our uncle Paul, big shout out to him, gave us a really beginner drum set one day. So when Sean started getting into guitar, as the little brother, you know, you want to do whatever your brother's doing. So I just started learning the drums alongside him, and we've been playing in the multiple bands together ever since. When it comes to like some random music memory, because no one mentioned it yet, it's a little bit cringy, but I remember my brother and I just absolutely jamming out in the living room, just like running around dancing and stuff to Limp Bizkit.
Oh my gosh, you're speaking my language. Limp
Oh yeah,
Bizkit.
like
Yes.
as much as people can say about them, like their music, especially the um album we listened to the most, I think Chocolate Starfish was
Mhm.
that one. Yeah. That whole thing is just, it just slaps. It's such a good, like,
Yep.
high energy, and just like something you could just freak out to. So I think that was probably one of my favorite albums as a kid, and that gave me like a lot of the desire to find like very high energy songs. Like you mentioned 4 Years Strong earlier.
Mhm.
They've been like top three bands of mine since like middle school, high school area. So I've been listening to that kind of for the same reason, because it's just most of their songs just punch and they're really fast and they just get you hyped. And yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's no, I love anytime anyone brings up Limp Bizkit, I'm like, again, and as a girl, everyone's like, "Oh, how can you?" But it was something about that music growing up, and especially the chocolate covered Starfish record. I remember just getting that and my parents being like, "What are you listening to this for?" And again, it's just something about it grabbed me, and to the point where I know they're touring this summer and I'm like, "I need to go. I need to get my fix," because they're larger than life again. I feel like they're selling out these festivals and just I don't know whether it's TikTok or what it is, but they're back on their A game and everybody these young kids are just loving Limp Bizkit. And I'm like, well, God, I didn't know they were still that popular, but apparently they are. So it's cool.
Yeah, and it should be said that a lot of metal bands have been taking like slight inspiration from like rap genre
Hmm.
lately, but I still don't think anyone did it as good as them. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
they did it so long ago that they
Yeah.
they really have always just been a standout like band slash genre because of that on their own.
Oh, 100%. And I think that's just oh, again, I love anytime anyone brings them up. I'm just like, all right, I'll talk Limp Bizkit. But for but for you guys, also like being from Minnesota, I guess a lot of people think too, you have to, at least I did for a long time too, you have to go to the coast. You know, I'm originally from Illinois, now I'm in New Jersey, but it's something special about the Midwest. For anyone that hasn't been to Minnesota or anywhere in the Midwest, what's so special about your music scene in Minnesota to you guys that say you want to describe it to anyone that just if they could just go in any little show you've been in or you've played, what makes Minnesota so special to you guys?
I think that, I mean, we'll probably pass it around.
Yeah.
But oh, Blake here. Um, I it's very inviting. You know, I started putting my music out there as a solo artist, Dinner's Worth, and kind of instantly was taken in by a lot of other people through social media. I was never like pushed away. And like, admittedly, when I do my solo stuff, I don't, my production quality is, you know, passable, but, you know, not nearly, it's like 10 times as rough as what we're doing with Halfway Down production wise. And, nobody seems to care. If you care
Mhm.
about your music and your sound, and if you're showing that you're passionate enough, I think the scene just welcomes you in with open arms, which is very cool to watch.
Yeah, like, oh, that is cool because I think that's what made my scene so special too. Like when I think about all the bands and my friends that played, it were those little moments too where like those imperfections just made it.
Yeah, yeah, it's and I do gravitate to rough and raw sound. Uh,
Mhm.
Jeff Rosenstock is another one of my favorite artists of all
Mhm.
time, and you know he had his solo project, and kind of I was very inspired by what he did for just getting into music production, because for a lot of his early stuff it was just his Mac recording all the tracks, programming drums, recording 1,000 vocal takes until he got ones that sounded decent. And you know, it never sounded great, but it was so raw and so gritty and so powerful that it just kind of sucks you in. But yeah, the scene is super, super, super inviting and fresh, and there's bands popping up every day. There's venues playing shows every night, whether it's a rap show, a metal show, a punk show, a hardcore show. So it's super, super active. If someone asked me to describe it, I would probably do it a lot more concise. But I think it's fresh. I think it's fresh and new.
Oh, I love that.
This is Ivan. My take on the music scene here is, well, Minnesota is notoriously cold, but the scene is very warm and inviting, which is cool.
Yeah.
We have a lot of very talented musicians here, and like you'd be surprised. Like hats off to like especially like the Gen Z, like the younger kids out there. Some of them are just absolutely killing it. Like I'm a big fan of, there's a local band that's called Virginia's Basement. They're like they describe themselves as emo trash, and I think they're like a 4-piece like BIPOC like band, and they're all really cool. You know what I mean? And it's like super inspiring to me, like being in my 30s, to see that there's still a scene that's alive and well. Because for a second there, I was a little concerned. I was like, "Oh man, is like EDM gonna just take over
Yeah.
everything?" You know, when we were growing up. But it's kind of like this underground resurgence of the guitar and getting those emotions out. So I would invite anyone to come out here. Dress for the weather.
Yeah.
Really, it's just like they call it just they call it just like winter and construction. Like those are the two seasons that we have here. So just keep that in mind. But no, Twin Cities is great. It's a beautiful spot, and the Minnesota nice. There's some truth to it. So
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
I think the only thing I would want to add about like Minnesota scene in general is this. I think it's because we have such long, horrible winters that when people do finally get to go to these shows, they really go all out and just like have as much fun as possible. I think there's a lot of passion there. One of the best shows that my brother and I played at was this tiny place called the Doghouse in Duluth, and it was literally some dude's basement. Like I was almost tall enough to hit the ceiling with my head. It was just the smallest place we've ever played, but people were attempting to crowd surf in that tiny basement.
Yeah.
People were like losing clothes and just like absolutely having an insane time, like we were some sort of big name band or something.
Yeah.
And it was just like in the middle of winter. It was just pure like everyone coming together and saying, we love music and we want to have as much fun as possible tonight. And I just feel that every time I go somewhere here.
Oh, that's the best. Like I remember too, again, like Illinois, I mean, it didn't I don't think it gets as cold as Minnesota. It gets close, I think, but that was one of those things too, those basement shows and how something about the wintertime and just going to a show and attending it and just escaping that cold. And it was just so special.
Just for a little break, we are recording this in a bathroom. We're all four sitting around.
Oh my God.
Sean is sitting on the toilet, and we have 3 folding chairs.
Oh my God.
we're about that basement.
We're about that basement life.
Oh my God.
We should post some photos on
Oh my God, yes, the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love to hear that about music scenes. And that's why we love to ask that too, because I think a lot of people constantly think, again, you have to go to the coast. And now that I'm here in New Jersey, I'll tell you, like, no, you don't. Like, I loved my music scene in Illinois. And I think there was just something so special about maybe people. I mean, nowadays, I think people are coming around to saying, oh, the Midwest, there's a lot of stuff going on. But it's just cool, like whether it's a band I think we had once from Utah or somewhere, these places that you're like, when I think pop punk or when I think this or whether it's hardcore, I don't think of that. But it's just everybody in any state, anywhere is making music. You don't need to be somewhere to make it. You can, plug in whatever and you have your outlet in your music.
Exactly. Yeah. It's I'm originally from Southern Arizona, and kind of like the same thing. I left before I really grew up and knew about music scenes and kind of like inner workings of cities and how that whole thing works. And now that I've reached out to people in like Tucson, there's so much like cool new punk and hardcore and pop punk popping up. I think it's hard to see from the outside, but then once you're in a scene, you can really, really feel it.
And again, normally I wouldn't ask this question because I think it's so cliche, but I was watching with Jack Adamant, who we had on the show, and you guys were on his Patched with Tape, which was so cool to see, like, that kind of small world thing. But you guys were talking about your band name and where it originated from. And I think it was one of those things where I was like, oh, I want to ask it in case anyone didn't listen to his podcast, which they should. I'll link his. But
Yeah.
your name originating is, I think it really represents your music and what you guys are about. Whoever would like to just kind of talk about how your name came to be. Where did Halfway Down come from?
Cam's gonna answer this. It's so funny that you mentioned Jack. Big shout out
Mhm.
to Jack Adamant.
Yes.
I connected with him because I saw his episode with you and was
Oh
like,
my
that was a
gosh.
good episode. And then he's like, hey, I've got a pod. I was like, what? And
What?
so that you got us together.
That
So thank
is
you.
so cool to hear. I remember him I think he told me that too. And it was just wild how he even reached out to me. I don't even know how, but he had emailed me too. And he was like, oh, I listened to your podcast. I have music. And I was like, this is so cool. Like someone's so far away. I would
Yeah.
love to have him and connect with him. And then like hearing he loved bands like Sincere Engineer and the Men
Oh,
Eaters. I was like, I can't believe you like Sincere Engineer. They're from Chicago, where I'm originally from. And it was just that small world thing. But yeah, no, shout out to Jack. I love him so much.
before I pass it to Cam, Sincere Engineer is one of my they are I
Mhm.
discovered them 3 years ago, and I know they're getting bigger and bigger every day, but I still think they're a sleeper band. Like I
Yes.
don't realize how good they are. But yeah, gonna pass it to Cam now about the
Yes.
name.
Well, I'll add like a little funny bit that I don't remember if we mentioned at the last podcast. I instantly forget stuff as soon as I'm done talking.
Oh, same. No worries.
But so we were trying to come up with a band name, and we had this like online note that everyone was adding to. Just probably honestly hundreds of names on
Yeah,
there.
it was probably
Yeah.
about 100.
Nonstop, everyone adding. I didn't contribute a single thing to it because I was just I'm like salaried and my job likes to, take advantage of that. So I don't get very much time to take a look at every single text message in the group chat and whatnot. So at the time I'm not adding anything to it. And they say, all right, we need a band name. We're getting together this day and we're not leaving till we figure it out. And I remember this particular one came from like an idea I had a long time ago. BoJack Horseman show on Netflix, one of my favorite shows of all time. Insanely good watch if no one's ever seen it.
Yes.
Handles so many like actual issues in a very accurate way to the point where sometimes you watch an episode and they portray something that you do very accurately and you're like, oh crap, I
Mhm.
need to go get that checked out. That's an actual thing. And I connected with that show very deeply when I was young. Went through some similar things in some of those episodes, but the second to last episode, they have a poem called The View from Halfway Down. Even if you don't watch the entire show, that one scene is just so powerful and like just amazing. Like I remember just being like unable to breathe, just kind of like, heart kind of, you can feel it in your chest and you're just like, holy, they put a lot of work into it. And as soon as it was done, it hit so hard that I immediately looked up like, where'd they get this poem from? Who made it?
Mhm.
And the writers actually made it themselves, like from scratch. It was an original poem that they made. And it's just, it hits very tough to talk about notes, but it's essentially about someone who makes that decision to jump off of a bridge. And it's just their viewpoint before jumping and their viewpoint halfway down where they regret their decision. And it's just a powerful poem. It's absolutely just one of my favorite pieces of like any sort of literature type thing, media. And then it just stuck in my head for a long time, just the word halfway down. I was like, it's catchy. It means a lot to me. It's a very like not necessarily screaming the reason for it being out there, but it just means a lot to me and sounds good and like hits all the notes. And we get to this meeting to pick the name, and I don't have anything written down. I only have one idea in my head, and at the very end of it, I'm just like, "How about this?" and explained it, and everybody loved it, and we ran with it.
Like, and hearing that even made me to go back and watch that because I was like, oh, and I was telling Justine about it, and I was like, that's why I was like, I have to have them talk about it because I think it fits what you guys talk about and how you approach mental health in your lyrics. So again, like I know I'm sure you probably have rehashed it a couple of times. So I appreciate you doing that because again, if nobody listened to Jack or anything or knows you personally, it's really cool to sometimes hear how people get their names.
Yeah, and I love telling that story because I think that show is a very, very, very good show. And it's, you know, a comedy, so it's
Mhm.
supposed to make you laugh most of the time, but I think the way they can portray a lot of messages throughout the entire show is just astounding, and I really like what they do. And anytime I can talk up about that show is a good time.
Even talking about your music, I know No Time Now has been out. Hopefully everybody has been listening to it because it has been on repeat for me. I literally when it came out, I was like, all right, I'm going to work. I'm going to put it on. Instantly, I was just like, I have to hit the repeat button because it's everything I love, whether it's about pop punk or that easy core, or there's even that part in the song. It's like at a minute 40 something. And I know you guys probably know, or anyone listening, there's this part where I'm like, oh, this is so good. And what's coming next? So I have to ask, like, what's been the response to the song out there now?
It's been really cool. I think it's hitting pretty on par with Dead Inside. You know, Fool's Gold was our first drop. We really didn't do much marketing for it. We were just kind of like, you know, maybe a week or two before. I can't remember what we did, but maybe like a post or two being like, we're a
Mhm.
new band, listen to
Mhm.
our song, you know, and really we're still finding our sound. We're still finding our sound every day. But with Fool's Gold, even the transition from how we write music and what we expect in the studio and everything has changed from that song to No Time Now. And as we're dropping these songs, we're writing them as well. Like typically bands traditionally will write an album, record an album, drop an album. We are writing each song, you know, every month and then dropping it until we build up to an album. So our style will change pretty drastically through the course of our first album. Every song is going to be written in a new time of our music life and our band life and our chemistry. So it's going to be an interesting kind of experiment. But yeah, I think No Time Now is hitting well with a lot of people because we it's always strange to hear the input of, you know, people who don't play music, people who
Mhm.
are musicians, critics, you know, my parents age, and No Time Now is a very aggressive song, and you know it has some f-bombs in it.
Mhm.
It talks about work pretty much draining your whole life, and that is something that, you know, everyone mid high school through the rest of their life can really relate to, is just that feeling of, is this really how we're gonna live our whole life, is just working until we're dead. So I it's kind of a bleak thought, but it is thought provoking and kind of it hits people. So
Blake's being a little too humble. Like, No Time Now is the best received song we've done so far.
Yeah.
by quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
Oh, oh, that's so great to hear because again, and like I think it's like you were saying, Blake, like it's one of those things too. We can all relate to that. Like even this podcast, when I want to make time for it, it's like, oh, if only I had these extra days and these extra hours to devote this to instead of, oh, let me go work these 8 hours. Let me go
yeah,
do all this, which again, I know that's how I have to pay my bills and keep that afloat. But what makes me happy, like doing whatever you're passionate about, or just, and again, when you think about it too, and not to bring it down, but it's the reality. The cost of living sucks now, and life can kind of suck right now if you want to
yeah,
afford anything in life. And it's like, you're already thinking ahead, like being in your 30s, like, oh, like shit, am I gonna have to, again, even longer than my parents, the retiring age is
uh,
probably going to be raised by the time we're all going to retire. And that's just insane to think about that's that. And I think that's why so many people, if anyone's listening, just even stop this, but then come back, but go listen to the song because I related to it right away. I think so many people will, and I love it.
thank you very much. Yeah, as a side note, I do to a fault, my I'm extremely humble, even to the point of like downplaying stuff. So Sean is my guy to step in and, and set the record straight. So that might happen a couple more times. But yeah, so it was a song that kind of came together fast, and it's yeah, we all have jobs in the band. You know, we all have our personal lives and families and stuff, and to spend so much time grinding at a job is it's rough.
I think that's what kind of probably makes it even that much more special that No Time Now is doing well too, where it's like, yes, you have your job and your stressors and just life in general, but people are connecting with this and hopefully it can take you to other places because
Mhm.
again, I hope it does because like we need this sound out there. Like again, no disrespect to the other pop punk some that's out there, but this sound is such a needed sound.
You're making us blush.
But I'm telling you for real, like, I was so excited about this. I was like, "Yes." Like, again, I love the music and the bands that we have on, but this one was run right away where I was like, "This is so good." And I don't know why this isn't it is not bigger. A lot of times when I have other bands on here too, I'm like, "Why isn't this bigger?" Like, I guess we
Yeah.
just have to get the algorithms right. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my thoughts on No Time Now is in a sense it's like a almost like a millennial anthem, sort
Mm,
of. You know what I mean? Like it's talking about kind of vaguely, like current events, but at the same time it's also I don't know, it's a little bit inspiring too. Like I know the song is kind of heavy, but like the lines of like when did my friends become classics? That's talking about how your friendships are like how important your friendships are in regards to like keeping your mental health well and like having a happier life. You know what I mean? So and that's kind of like the vision behind the music that we make in general is like we want to talk about stuff that's heavy, but we also want to kind of end it on that like more uplifting note because at the same time like we recognize that people are struggling out here, so it's like we always want to focus on that hope, even if it's like a fool's hope, you know what I mean? Like that,
mhm.
hey, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but today let's enjoy, like the music, let's enjoy our friends, the relationships that we have, and continue to grow because we only have so much control over everything that's happening in the world. Honestly, we hardly have any control. So I think bringing it down to earth and then just taking care of the people that you love is like the most important bit. But I'll get off of my I'll stop preaching. I'll get back to
No, that was great.
No, that was great because I think that's so important. That's another reason why, like, obviously, our podcast, Music and Mental Health. I mean, that's why we started the podcast for sure, is to bring that in. That there are, I mean, everyone's got everything's going on and what we can't control, and kind of trying to bring something positive out there. And I know in your music and in not just No Time Now, but you guys, your sentiments do echo those mental health undertones, which I think is so important that bands talk about. For you guys, how is music played? I mean, obviously, what you guys play in your band, but whether it's a different artist or anyone else, how has music made a positive impact in your mental health?
Oh, I mean, I'm gonna mention them forever, but
Yeah.
Blink Say Anything and Jeff
Yep.
Rosen, they are all very different, dynamically speaking, with their music and how they write lyrics and even kind of genre. But those are the three that kind of kept me on track and kept me going in my life. Blink, especially with the self-titled album, they get so deep and
Yeah.
they hit a topics, divorce and death of friends and all that stuff. And just listening to that and going through, you can really get their pain through their vocal delivery and how heavy their tone gets and stuff. And that that kind of hearing someone else vocalize their pain helps internalize it, and that's where you get a lot of benefits from music. I think is just hearing the pain from other people. Jeff Rosenstock, very descriptive, very storytelling, and he will tell exactly what happens. He's got a song called Five Funerals where he talks about he lost five friends in a year, and
Mhm.
that's a really hard thing to listen to. Say Anything, Max Bemis is one of the deepest, darkest writers I've ever heard, but again, very mental health related, talks about every topic you could think of. And so having those to fall back on, especially when when you're in high school and early 20s and you don't know what life is and life can just fall apart sometimes, having those staples in your days can just keep you going.
Oh, I love that you brought up Max Bemis because he is bucket list for me if I could ever. I have reached out to him, but sadly not. I've not gotten a response, but it's okay. I still love Max Bemis. I still love
Pretty
Say
busy
Anything.
now that he's coming back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but again, for that reason, what he is so open about his bipolar diagnosis and just
Yeah.
everything writes about. Oh, and of course, yeah, Jeff Rockenstock. Yeah, him too. Like I've seen with Gaslight Anthem and just fell in love with his music there.
Yeah, it's that's my whole take. I'm gonna pass it to anyone who wants it.
Yes, yeah. Who won?
Mental health? Yeah.
Well, for me, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis when I was a kid, so I could never play sports or anything. So music as a whole honestly gave me an identity that I was searching for when I was a young kid and a teenager. So music all encompasses like probably how my whole life trajected, and I don't know what I'd be doing without music, to be honest with you. I don't know what kind of hobby I'd have or whatever, like
Yeah.
I'll even though
Music to me, oh man, where do I start? No, it's helped me out quite a bit, especially in some like darker moments in life. I won't go into it necessarily, but I've dealt with my fair share of mental health issues, and like unfortunately, like a lot of my family and my loved ones have suffered with issues as well, because there's just like there are problems that run through the family, right? And so
Mhm.
we've all had to find ways to cope, and some of my family members have found unhealthy ways, and others have found like positive ways to get better. And I'm hoping that everyone ends up getting better in the long run, right? But for me, music has definitely been a way to like express those just like really deep, dark seated emotions. And I think it's just part of the human experience. It just makes you like, if you're able to enjoy music, or even even silence too. Like sometimes I'll sit there, and I've been out like up north in Minnesota, and it's beautiful, by the way. Everyone go up there if you get a chance. But it's like sitting there, even listening to the the silence, or listening to like the breeze, the birds, all that. It's so freaking cool, and it really like fills up your soul. So yeah, I think if anyone's out there who's like, oh, I don't know if I'm a good musician or not, or I don't know if I want to get into music, like go for it. You know what I mean? Like write it out, express yourself, get it out there. Like there's always going to be a community of people that are going to resonate with whatever it is that you're talking about. And so I highly encourage that is get out there, make your music, support your scene. Here you go, Cameron.
Yeah, I'm surprised we went around the entire table, and my original thought is still original. So I thought for sure somebody would say what I was gonna say. But for me personally, like when talking about mental health and music, I grew up in I don't even think it's like necessarily a unique situation, but I was raised that kind of traditional way of like, hey, you are a man, let's not express too many emotions, kind of thing. Like let's suppress those. And I think subconsciously I always gravitated to the music that was heavy on the energy, like either the most angry music, the most happy music, or the most sad music. And no one's mentioned the Wonder Years yet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Wonder Years is one of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
Aaron West and the Roaring Twenties, his like solo project. They just made like a new like EP, and that's just been my
so good
on loop jam. But I think I always used like those super sad songs that were like honestly sadder than most things I've been through at the time when I was young too, just to sing along to something so emotional and sad and just heartbreaking music just kind of helped me indirectly process / experience those kind of emotions in a situation where I really didn't have any outlet to do it. It was just me in my car and screaming along to music, and I think it helped me get through some stuff, because if you can't like talk about something when you're really sad, even if you don't have a good reason for being sad, quote unquote,
Yeah.
just being able to listen to a super devastating song and sing along just helps you release those pent up emotions, I think.
I love that you bring up even just being a man. I think men's mental health, we talk about stigma of mental health, but men's mental health in general has its own stigma. And that's why I'm so thankful when any bands like yourselves want to come on and talk about mental health because one, I know it's not an easy thing to talk about, but it's so important because, especially if you are a man, because so many people, it's, suck it up. I've had a couple guests say that same thing where they've been told, grab yourself up by the bootstraps and just, no, don't deal with it. And it's so important because the more you pack it in, we had a guest, Ryan, that was like, it's sometimes to face these things isn't easy, but if you can face them, whether it is you go to therapy or you have a friend or music and you're able to have an outlet, makes it so much easier to deal with that because it's when you are alone or you feel you're alone and you don't have anyone or anything to connect with, it just sucks. Like I can't even say anything else. It sucks and you feel so alone.
Yeah, that's yeah, you're describing the darkest scenario when are you're by yourself, you have no one to
Mhm.
talk to, and you have to just deal with your problems, and you don't even know how to do it. I think that's when music can be a very key thing is hearing other people's pain can help you deal with your own. Cameron's whole description. I literally have a tear in my eye, dude, and I don't really cry that much. So, yeah, this was all therapy for all of us, probably. Just this
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
it's I mean, that's how I feel sometimes. We just had a guest on who his episode drops Tuesday, and even that I felt like it was therapeutic for him, but I also felt like for us in general, just talking about like he loses the love of his life and he's using his music to through the grief. And it literally, I was like, I don't even know if I can get through this recording because it was one of those things where it just hit and we've all been there where music is that one thing. And yeah, just
Yeah, that's devastating.
oh, oh, yeah, let me tell you, like, we try to light we in the beginning, it starts very lighthearted of the episode, teaser for the episode if anyone, but they'll hear it by the time this comes out, but, we start very lighthearted, but then it does get into how he's using music, and I think it just showed me how powerful music can be and what you guys just talked about, what he talked about, and we all have a story. I mean, I've told it a couple times where I saw New Found Glory, where I just moved out here, and I was so just in a really bad place where I'm like, "Oh, should I have come out here? I don't have any friends, family, my music scene." And literally seeing New Found Glory walk across the stage and just having that moment where I had tears in my eyes and, like, again, someone next to me is probably like, "What are you doing? They're not even playing yet." But it just it was that powerful moment to where it was like, yeah, it's bigger than music. It's bigger than my band, and I think oh, you guys just said it perfectly with everything.
Exactly. Yeah, it's music is for us at least, I think everything.
Mhm.
It's everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, even talking I know, I mean, it's wild to say, okay, we're in 2024, but for mental health awareness, I guess, and you guys can each go around too. How important is mental health awareness to you guys? I know you guys have already touched on it a little bit, but I mean, accessibility is huge. Obviously, it's number one for a lot of people. But what would you guys like to see change as far as mental health awareness?
I mean, I think it's Cam brought up a really good point, and this, I don't want to divide the audience or anything, but males' mental health awareness is,
Hmm.
at least for us in our 30s. It might be different for the younger kids out there, but all of the late 20s, early 30-year-old male audience, we pretty much were all just told, keep going, like
Yeah.
just pick it up, deal with it. That's life. It sucks. And that's it. Like that's all we were all told. And I think that's pretty universal. So just the continual awareness of to us that it's okay to talk about it and it's okay to just like now I mentioned that I don't really cry that much. It's
Mhm.
okay to freaking cry. Like
Yeah.
that's literally just a human emotion, and like, it's kind of weird to be afraid of that stuff. So it's super important. But yeah, my whole thing is overall continue awareness. Yeah, accessibility is huge. Like I said before, we're going to continue pushing that through our music, as accessibility and uniqueness is going to be key for pushing mental healthness or health out there. But on to Sean.
I don't have a whole lot more to add on to that
Yeah.
because that was pretty nice, but I just think more awareness for sure, especially in these times where we are bombarded by information constantly. And it's usually the most polarizing stuff that gets the most attention. And I think that, to go off what Blake just said, the younger people really suffer from that, like the social media, the polarizing content. And sometimes like I feel like I don't know how to go with it, I guess. Like,
Yeah, like
here, you can go ahead. I don't
sure. I think, just to go off what Sean's talking about, I think that we are living now. Well, okay, us as like, I guess middle range. I don't know, mid range millennials.
Yeah.
I don't know what a millennial
We're
counts
middle
as.
age.
No.
Yeah, something like that. Like, we are the last generation that got to experience life before technology, or childhood, and all of a sudden, like, into our late teens, adulthood, like all of a sudden technology is ubiquitous. And so I think that what's happening with the younger generations, and here's the thing, everyone's aware of this, is the fact that you can get online and you can like connect with potentially millions of people from your bedroom, and you can start building communities, which is awesome. But at the same time, like, you turn the phone off and you're all by yourself. So it's this like really weird, like almost like ironic thing of, we've never been we've never had this level of human connection, but we've also never been this lonely. Like, and that to me is a big concern, because I've seen it in some of my friends, I've seen it in my family members, where all of a sudden, they imagine themselves being in their 30s, married and having children, and then all of a sudden, like, due to like economic pressures, social pressures, they're barely able to pay rent. And it's like, it's devastating, and this is a little bit of a hot take, and I'll try not to be long-winded about it, but I think that we've had plenty of mental health awareness. I think that there just hasn't been a lot of like action from, and I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but from like our leadership as a whole in the country, that there are resources that are being placed into certain things that we don't necessarily agree with, but like mental health issues, like homelessness here back, back home, and like other problems aren't really being addressed. And I think to myself, like, well, where's the breaking point, right? Because that's also kind of what like No Time Now hits on. Like, there's a line there that says, if our future is really going up in flames, then you'll burn with us. It's like, we're almost starting to feel like we're almost hitting that like kind of boiling point of like, what happens next, So I think that I would encourage everyone to definitely, like, anyone that's struggling with mental health issues, like, definitely speak up about it. I would highly suggest, therapy. Here's with the caveat of, shop for a good therapist, because not everyone out there is great. So it's always like a good idea to get a second opinion. And if you don't vibe with that person, or something's off, like, you're not committed, it's like you're not married to that person. So, like, and I think also, potentially, this is going to be super controversial, but it's like, potentially take a break from social media too. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, like, going outside, taking a walk, it sounds so basic, but I think back to like, oh my gosh, what's it called? Like Frankenstein. I think it was Victor Frankenstein. So the guy that made Frankenstein, right? Like, in the book, when you read it, like, every time he starts feeling down or depressed, he goes to nature. He goes outside. He gets himself away from like his troubles. Obviously, I mean, like, in that situation, it's a whole mess that he brought upon himself. But it's like, I've always resonated with that, because I'm like, hey, if you're able to kind of like ground yourself and like really do that kind of like self-care, like, it can get you through a lot of situations. And I know that, like, I've talked with Sean about it a lot, about ways that we could, try and reduce our stress, or get ourselves into more, like, I don't want to say advantageous positions, but just like, hey, how can we save more? How can we feel less stress? And we've been able to like kind of give tips to each other, and that helps a ton. So, especially when it comes to like, being dudes in this case, and it's like, we've been able to kind of back each other up in that sense. So that's been huge. But like I'm saying, to get to the point, my thing is I think that we definitely need more action. I think that we should definitely talk about it, but I also think that we should hold the powers that be accountable,
Yes.
and like use your voice, get out there. You know what I mean? Obviously, do all this peacefully, and keep it like I want everyone to be safe, but I think that there's power in the ideas that we have and the voices that we can put out there. So the end. That's all I gotta say. Here you go.
Yeah.
I know. My bad.
Do you want me I could it was basically, where do you want mental health to go? Where would you like to see? What would you like to see more of for mental health awareness?
Oh, so I've been seeing like this change in my life personally, so hopefully the experience is kind of like with everyone else. But I've recently reconnected with some like older friends from college era. I wasn't really thinking about it until this question came up, but everyone that I was reconnecting with was very transparent on one was talking about how they're looking for a therapist, another was talking about like the medication that they're on and stuff. So I think like having the amount of content that we have been having recently about mental health awareness has actually gotten it to a point where it's completely normalized to talk about in at least my friend group. Hopefully that'll be like kind of the norm with everybody is what I would like to see because there's when I talk about it with my friends, there's no stigma surrounding it. It's not, oh, this guy's sad, ugh, or since telling me about this. It's just like unbiased support. And again, I'm talking about my friend group, so it's like with my friends. But I'd like to see everyone get to a point where we can just talk about it and be real with each other in person and not have um, negative connotations with it.
Yeah, that's I love that you guys are all touching on too about like the action, because that's my big thing. Like May is coming up, and May is mental health awareness month. And you always see all, and again, not to get super political, but you do see all these politicians or even the White House, oh, it's May is mental health awareness month. It's okay to not be okay. But there's no action towards it. There's no, in whether it's accessibility, affordability, again, like making it easy to find a therapist, because that's been my thing. Whether I didn't vibe with the first two, so then I had to go and finally found another one. And
Yeah.
I think that's something, and it's so hard. It's hard enough already when you're struggling to make the phone call and to get one. So now then you have to maybe try and find another one. It's a lot for people. And I think I would like to see that more action of that, because posting a post on Instagram is okay, but what are we going to do with that?
Exactly. That's yeah, I mean, obviously not to go into this, political area, but you see across the world, not even just the United States, companies and, top government leaders, whatever the fad is or whatever that month is dedicated to, they hop on that and then the
Yes.
next day, I mean, it's literally a meme. Like the
Hmm.
next day that is over, it's not talked about for another year. It's such a shame that, money money can if there's a way to incentivize something through money, it can be taken advantage of, and that's been weaponized in 2024. That's
Yeah.
one of the weaponized things is just our social political structure, and it's hard to watch, but hopefully through social media obviously has a lot of pros, a lot of cons,
Hmm.
but if anything, it's you're able to see both sides of conversations, which never used to really exist with large news media corporations. When you have, you're either watching these guys who say this or these guys who say this. Now with social media, at least you can see people talk about all different types of things. But yeah, to get back to it, yeah, it's seeing the leadership not really care about mental health is it's something needs to change.
Yeah. Oh, no, it does. And I know you guys have all kind of touched on it a little bit, whether it was, maybe not get rid of social media, but lessen your time. That's my number one thing with this podcast is I hate that it's like, well, if I don't promote it, then it's not out there. But even me,
Right.
I've started implementing maybe it's a day and the weekend or something. Hey, I'm not going to go on because need to distance that, and going outside or even just getting physical activity, whether it's just a walk or something. But are there any other tools, I guess, if someone's listening to this that maybe they're like, oh, I've tried everything, but maybe they haven't, like that you guys, besides music, going outside, maybe less in social media, talking about it, anything else that you guys use that maybe you'd like to share?
I was just gonna say, exercise is
Mhm.
one of the things. Every time, it's hard to be consistent. Consistency is one of my worst properties. I can do it with things I love, but it's hard
Yes.
with things I don't love.
Yes,
So,
same.
uh, size and diet, not being so impulsive is tough. But yeah, I think exercise is one of the best. If you're having a bad day and if you exercise, by the end of that workout, usually you've reversed. You kind of get rid of that negative viewpoint, no matter what happened. At least in my viewpoint.
Mhm.
Uh, and if you're doubly doing exercise outside, it's kind of the best of both worlds. That's mine. I think exercise is my biggest thing.
Yeah.
For me, I just noticed reducing screen time helps for me. Like even if I'm doing stuff that I like on screens, like say I'm playing a video game with the guys or whatever, I just feel like if you're on screens too much, you do eventually start to get depressed, even if you're doing stuff you
Mhm.
like. So I make it a point to go out and just see friends and do things pretty frequently throughout the week. And that's what helps with me, just kind of getting out there and being out of the house.
I think for me, and I think Sean would agree with this, is like there's something to be said about like having a third place is like a big deal. And they seem to be vanishing, which is unfortunate. But
Mhm.
I know like the guys here like breweries is like a big deal, and like going like some of the breweries are like around St. Paul even have like arcades in them and stuff.
Oh,
You
cool.
which is wild because it turns into this whole like even if you don't like beer or whatever, like it turns into this whole like social experience, which is pretty cool. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
For me, like I I shouldn't even confess this, but like I play a lot of like Magic the Gathering and like card games with
Hi,
my friends
that's
or whatever. Yeah.
that's cool. That's cool though.
Yeah. And
That's
like
another guy thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I'll still hit up like game shops and stuff or card shops like and like participate. I mean, I always get my butt kicked by like a 12-year-old, but like I'll and stuff. But there's something to be said about like getting away from the screens and then like just seeing another person face to face. And I understand that like maybe for a lot of listeners, like there's a lot of social anxiety and stuff. And I get that because I've dealt with that before. And that is really tough. But I think that it's one of those things where you're going to get better the more you expose yourself to those situations. So and take it slow. I mean, when it comes to accessibility, like that's a big deal to me because like I have people in my life that like have had different like physical ailments, like even like traumatic brain injuries and stuff. And so like everyone is going to start at a different place. So even with like the exercise thing, I think like if you can't like go for like a marathon, like hey, get outside and try to move a little bit, and like even like for me personally, like I just walk around the block every once in a while. Like I don't go super super heavy because like I
Yeah.
have some issues, so that helps. So I'll pass it to Cameron. I'm gonna there you go.
Thank you. For me, I've realized, especially with social media, TikTok is a prime example that I crave like dopamine, right?
Mhm.
Like, and that's what it really is. Every time you scroll up, you're hoping that the next video is going to give you a tiny bit of dopamine, and you get less and less as you go, and eventually you're just frustrated that you're watching social media. And so I try to find things that are kind of got like the like reward accomplishment kind of thing, but also slow it down a ton. I think board games have been one of my favorite like pastimes. There's so many like companies resurging and like new games coming out on Kickstarter and stuff, and sitting down with some friends and playing a long board game that you enjoy the entire time and get that dopamine spike at the end if you win or whatever just feels a lot
depression if
just yeah. it feels a lot healthier than just that instant gratification kind of thing. And to play on the exercise component too, I feel like I've never been able to go to the gym and just work out. I always get bored. Maybe it's my brain, my ADD, maybe, I don't know. But I like if I set myself to do like 10 reps or something and I hit it, I'm absolutely done. I'm not doing anymore. Um, but something I found that helped me and my brain a lot to get some activity is I've been rock climbing a lot. And we have this really nice indoor rock climbing gym in Minneapolis. And it just does the same thing that the board games kind of do, where you look and there's a challenge and it says the difficulty rating, it's one you've never done before. And I will push myself on that wall nonstop until I get to the top, and just it feels great, and I get some actual working out, and it's been taking a lot of screen time out of my life for sure.
I love everything you guys just said because some of the stuff we've had, but some of the stuff not. And I think it's really anytime anyone else can say about exercise, it's good because I think so many people think nowadays with social media, oh, people just want to tell you that. But no, even in my life and implementing more exercise and again, walking around my block, I'm in a townhome. So we don't have a big lot, like, but we have like a big circle thing. And it's been so great to get out whether I'm editing and I put my headphones on, so I'm away from the screen. I'm doing what I want to do, but I'm outside. And I
Yeah.
think everything you guys shared is really going to help people and especially the guys, because I think that's why I love and I appreciate you guys taking the time for us. And this has just been so great to have you guys on and I appreciate it. But before I let you go about your day, I want to know what else can we expect from you guys this year? Anything you're looking forward to that you can share? And where can people find you guys?
This is usually when I over humble this, so I'm actually gonna let
Okay. So things that you can expect from us. It's next week, isn't it? Suede Studios.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next weekend we're going to be doing a live stream performance show with Suede Studios. Shout out to them. They have been preparing for us, and I feel like it's gonna be very comfortable. Seem like they're really, really cool people there. So that's next week. Tune into that if you can. We just wrapped up our 4th song just a couple days ago, and it is turning out amazing. I cannot wait to share that. Probably expecting to see that next month. Shout out to Joey for doing our production, by the way. He's our guy. And we are looking to actually we're already booked. We're going to be doing shows later this summer. So people are going to actually be able to come out and see us finally in July. So and we can't wait to see them.
Yeah.
We are ready to entertain people. So that's kind of the short term of what we're expecting. Anybody else have anything that I missed, Ivan?
I'll just plug the socials. So you
Yes.
can find us everywhere on IG. We are at Halfway Down Official, and I want to say that it's the same on TikTok. You can find us even on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel that we've been neglecting a little bit. Get over to the Instagram, like I said before, at Halfway Down Official. There's a link tree there that you can click on, and you'll find our music on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, wherever you would expect to find it. Yeah, I mean, hit us up there, and love to chat with you too. You guys ever want to talk about anything?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this has been so great. I'm looking forward to hearing the other song because like I said, I really truly love your music. I love what you guys are doing. So this has been really great to have you guys on. And I thank you guys so much for taking time.
Thanks for having us. I mean, it was like I said,
Yeah.
I listened to a couple of your episodes and found Jack, and then Jack and I had a podcast, and then we talked, and it's kind of been a full circle moment.
Yeah, like that's so awesome. And again, anytime I can find a new band that doesn't have that many followers or maybe people aren't paying attention, it's like, all right, I'm going to push them, I'm going to boost them. So I'm really excited that I get to boost you guys now.
Thank you we appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys have a great rest of your day. And all right, guys, that was my conversation with Cameron, Sean, Ivan, and Blake of Halfway Down. I cannot thank them enough. They said so many wonderful things, and I was really excited to have them on the show and really get to know them. I think they're just such a cool band, and they're one of those bands that I think we need right now. We need a band that's doing cool things. And I know that sounds like kind of silly to say cool, but they truly are. And I think they're a band to watch for sure. I'm excited what they do next. And I cannot thank these guys enough. They had a little bit of technical difficulties with their MacBook, and they were troopers. They were recording in a bathroom, all four of them, passing a phone around. I cannot thank these guys enough for that because it was great audio and I don't know how that worked for them, but I really appreciate everything they do. As for Justine and I, we will be back with a wonderful conversation next week by my first local band here in New Jersey. I'm really excited to share them. I haven't had a New Jersey band yet, so this was really cool for me. Follow us on socials, you know who it is, but whatever, who cares? Maybe you don't. All links below for that as well. We will see you guys next week. You know, new episodes go up every single Tuesday. We cannot wait to share, and we will see you guys next week. All right. Bye, guys.